discussion, Mike. I'll turn it over to you guys and go from there.
Okay, if you guys look at the first, actually the second page, after the cover page, we have it broken down into single-family residential, commercial, and industrial. Just so you're aware, single-family residential covers single-family homes on one lot, duplexes, townhomes, apartments, covers the whole gamut, including additions, remodels. There's certain things that we're not looking to adjust that are fairly simple, like re-roof permits, swimming pools, because our timing on those remains pretty constant. But these three main categories are like the bulk of our time, whether it's office time, field time, and also review time. So we try to break those down based on our three plus staff members on an hourly basis based on what our responsibilities are. Excuse me. So you can see how we broke that down. And we all have, like I said, we all have responsibilities. For example, when it comes to the review side, you guys can pitch in if you want. On the review side, on like new single-family homes, for example, I probably do like 90% of the reviews, where Nate and Laura do 90% of the field work. So it kind of, the things switch on that. When you get to commercial and industrial, those are pretty much my projects to handle, but they help me with those as well. So our time is split there as well. So we tried to break these down as best we could, and Ryan did a good job of explaining that we have some projects that go really well. And we'll just use single family for an example, that we're probably making 4 stops on average for a new home. But we have some builders that we have issues with, and those 4 stops could turn into 6, they could turn into 8. Just depends on whether they, how well they work with us, and we work with them to get those done. Commercial and industrial are bigger time draws just based on the size and scope of those projects. So those take even more time. So we try to break those down into, as you can see, review, field, and office time. Also iWork, which is our permitting software. So it's instrumental in the review end of it, the permit issuance end of it. And we also do all our inspection notes on that as well. We also coordinate all our jobs with the MS4 inspections in those neighborhoods and work with Public Works to get those things resolved. So we just broke everything down the best we could to give you some dollars and cents wise. Because everything, of course, everything has changed, that construction has gotten more expensive. And I guess we have gotten more expensive as time has gone on. And we haven't adjusted our fees since 2017. Or I'm sorry, 2019.
I have a question. You say down at the bottom of the calculations done, do not include several things there.
Yes.
When you say insurance, is that self-insurance?
No, vehicle?
That's vehicle insurance?
Yes.
And liability. We did put their, an increase for their benefits is built into their hourly rates.
It is, okay.
So yeah, their personnel services is reflected in their hourly rates. it's the others, there's no way to really,
Right.
the problem, like, same thing on the trucks, like, we have to provide them trucks to drive construction sites. Well, there's gas for those vehicles, there's insurance for those vehicles. There's no way, how do we break that down into a building permit? So again, that's more of the explanation that someone from the outside says, well, you said your actual cost is $683, but my permit was $750, that's not fair. Well, we only gave you the hourly rates of things we could actually calculate, but there are still other costs to us to be able to provide those services that we can't, there's just no way to calculate it. Include it.
So the rates that get published is this for single family 683.24.
That's not published, that's for you guys, and it was for them to then look at and say, how should we calculate our rates? So that's what they use to then go forward, which is your next page, to say, this is what we think. And again, this is where it doesn't translate clean, but if you look at a single family permit, they're recommending that you increase it from $300 to $500 plus 15 cents per square foot. So if you did the math and just said a typical home is 2,500 square feet, well, that ends up being a $750 permit. Then that feeds back to this to say, well, if it costs us $683 plus these things, we're covering our costs.
Okay.
So this is more to justify how we're getting to the number that we're recommending on your second page. Same thing with commercial. Now, there's different things of commercial, there's different things of industrial. So I didn't ask them for every single task to go through and calculate what that costs. That would have been a lot of effort on their part. And again, some of those, we didn't even change the fees, so we didn't invest the time and energy in those. The three main components are single family permits, or the residential permits, commercial permits, and industrial permits. So that's where we spend our time and energy.
So by breaking it down that way, what's our percentage that goes with that? Residential is what percent, commercial is what percent, what's industrial?
Are you talking about how like Linda broke down and she was like 85% of cost? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, no, just how many of our permits are residential? How many of our percentage of our permits are commercial?
But we had that earlier. Last year we did 491 permits.
Correct.
400 plus were residential.
No, we did 889 permits last year. And of those, it was like 491 were residential permits. And then the balance commercial and industrial.
We're not doing a ton of commercial permits. Now, some of them, when they are, they're bigger. The industrial ones are really the biggest. I mean, like on a 1 million square foot building, that's $150,000 permit. But again, we may only get one industrial permit a year, or maybe two.
Right,
Like we're not getting a volume of, the volume is the single family.
The balance is 6.
Especially with Eastern Gray going on, and a lot of residential apartments down.
Yeah, if you looked at Mike's permit or his monthly report, in the first 2 months of the year, he only issued 19 residential permits. Well, in March, he did 51, and that's because Eastern Gray came in and pulled a bunch of permits. So, you know, again, we have kind of some of those ebbs and flows, but
That and Indiana, nobody wants to move it.
yeah, nobody wants to move in January, February. So.
So I would say that if we are going to consider looking at these increases, just like we did with the planning department, I would say, let's not wait the big chunks of time again. I think we review them every couple of years, so that we aren't having these huge increases and shock to people. I mean, 2019, that's.
Yeah, and really, Senate Enrolled Act 1001 or House Enrolled Act 1001 prevents us from doing that. It only allows us to do an annual adjustment at the CPI rate. So we could, if the council wants to do that, we could put some language into our permits and say annually, and we had this discussion, Linda and I had this discussion with Baggy, and Baggy actually said they would have preferred we do that. Now, if we actually do it, it'll be interesting to see if they really think that, but when they told us, they said, well, we'd rather you have incremental, slow increases versus all of a sudden having your permits went up a whole bunch. So if that's something, guidance you guys want to give us, we can work with legal and try to put some language in for that.
You can do that now, once we bring it up to where it should be,
Right.
and then do your CPI thereafter.
Exactly.
But not do your CPI from 2019 to where we're at.
Agreed.
That's
Agreed.
why we need to hurry to get this done before June 1st, right?
Right.
Yeah. But I think,
I know that we don't base our decisions on other communities and stuff, I've heard that. But do we do a comparison just for informational sake, to see how we can compare?
All right, you can pass that. We have it, we just didn't give it to you.
Yes, we actually did that. Laura was spot on with getting with these other communities. The interesting part is the way our fee structures are set. You don't have to be a math genius to figure out permit fees. Other communities, it's all over the board. So to say, oh, well, they're, all these other jurisdictions they run like we do, they do not. So once you get looking at that, you're gonna go, this doesn't make any sense. It really
I'm
doesn't.
sure there's no standard calculation, everybody has their own way of interpreting.
No, I mean, the three of us were in a meeting with Indiana Association of Building Officials, and that was the biggest complaint from the state of Indiana, was that local jurisdictions did not have a standard fee structure. So, I'd rather keep ours as simple as possible.
And that's fine, then, is this the same as when Linda did hers, that we can only cover our costs, maybe whatever the different differential is? Okay,
That's correct.
and then, did you share this with Maggie, so we'll get their 11th hour text and email saying we don't want you to do this?
We haven't yet. We wanted to share with you guys first, based on your feedback. If you're generally okay with it, we'll share it with them after the meeting. But I didn't feel like it was right to share with them before I shared it with you, so.
This is no different than running any business. And so if we haven't done since for the last 7 years. I agree with Don, we need to do this periodically, and periodically is only to cover the CPI and cost index. Get us to where we need to be, and then if it's 3%, 2%, whatever, then we need to do it every year. Because we have to cover our expenses.
and builders have not kept their cost per square foot the same since 2019. So, I mean, they can squawk about it, but they've increased their fees.
They're passing the fee on anyhow, they're not paying for it out of their own pocket. So,
They're keeping their 25% profit and they're charging it to others, so.
Unless we want to increase our impact fees to show that they're paying more than their fair share, then we don't have any way to understand that, right?
Right. But just remember, we're also updating our impact fees as well, so later this summer, you guys are gonna see that as well. It's working out better, so.
Right, but everything goes up.
Yeah.
I just think we need to be better stewards with our taxpayer dollars, and that is that we need to be passing those through. We can't just be absorbing it or expecting the taxpayers to absorb it. And, the outside builders and developers are the ones making the profit. That's not fair.
Right.
So,
And you will see that when you
More
look.
often, we should have it. We're doing one in February, we did one in April, we're gonna do one in July. We should try to get these where they're all coming together in February, so we can gain the advantage of the whole calendar year. And then if it is the CPI adjustment, then, okay, now we're on the same page.
And you will notice that when you look at the fees, you'll recall when Linda did the planning fees, you'll notice that, like the building permits, to your point, Don, things that developers are paying for, those are actually covering our costs. You'll notice on some of the other things where town residents, like maybe I'm just doing a re-roof, or I want a pool permit. Not only do those take less time, but those are services that we're providing to our residents who are paying taxes. So those fees are lower compared to developers who are building a building. They should be paying their fair share of what it costs to provide that service. So you'll notice that as well when you look at it. We carry that over into our building approach as well.
we're talking about permit fees. Have we increased our alarm fees? Interesting. Alarm fees, have you looked at those and what the cost is to go on an alarm run?
We have not, I don't think we've ever had an alarm fee here for the town.
Yeah.
We have alarm permits.
My department.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, the clerk treasurer does that, so you could request a clerk treasurer to review that if you'd like.
I'd say we should review it because, I mean, their costs have gone up to have the officer go on the run.
And we do fine people when they get 3 free. On the 4th one, they get a fine.
Where do the alarm fees go?
We find.
To my fund.
Let's go and bring it up. Your monthly stats have the alarm runs that we take every month. They're usually around 100 or so a month, I think.
Yeah. And a lot of it's like the commercial businesses, tire places and things like that, and Burger second side, so they're doing false alarm runs 3-4 times a month on the same business because there's a burden there that keeps setting it off. So, yeah, those are the ones that we find and get our money back. But the residential alarm permit fees are still only $50 for 2 years.
I thought they were 25 a year.
Yeah, it's 25 a year, 55, or 2 years.
$50 for 2 years.
Which, yeah, that's probably not covering our administrative costs of issuing the permits, let alone all the other stuff. So, yeah, we want to review that.
Is there a graduated fee structure, so if it's a repeat offense?
Yes. Yep. Which I'm happy to raise those fees. You know,
Well, I don't say raise them, I just say let's review them and see if they need adjustments.
That's which line revenue account that is.
that goes to me.
Robert, Jason,
I agree. I don't want to arbitrarily raise it, but I agree that it needs to be reviewed, and if it does need to be raised, raise it to that amount. I don't think anything you guys said, I disagree with.
Yeah, same. I think these are reasonable, more than reasonable, and I think having it adjust automatically every year based on the CPI is probably,
Yeah, the other kind of variance I might have are the home alarm fees, because I think home alarms probably help you more than they hurt you. Business alarms might be a little bit different, but home alarms,
It's the false alarm runs that they do are mostly commercial properties. So it wouldn't affect the residentials.
Do you find that they're more apt to just pay it and you don't get it? And I try to,
Oh, they don't question it, they just pay it.
so it sounds like to me that it's so low, they're willing to just pay it. If it's cheap, you just pay it and fix it.
I can't speak for anyone.
That's just a theory.
Sorry, Rhoda. So I guess we'll move on.
I mean, any other guidance on the building permits? Are you comfortable? Again, I fully expect that we'll hear that people don't like us increasing our fees, but and again, I'll work with Anna and Dan, see if we can get some language in there to allow the CPI increase, or if not, we'll just plan on doing it on an annual basis. The problem is, the new statute, we have to, right now, we wait 90 days on building permits, so even when, like on the planning fees, when you guys adopted those, they went into effect immediately. On the building fees, we gotta wait 90 days under the current law. Under the new law, we had to wait 180 days. So, Greg, we can never do what you're actually saying because the different fees are handled differently, so we can try to do it, but it still won't work out right.
So even if it's already in our code that it increases by CPI, we still have to wait 180 days?
No, not exactly. So once we publish notice of the ordinance proposing the change to the building fees, and this is specific to building fees, we publish notice, and then once it's adopted, it only takes effect and therefore can be paid after 90 days currently. If the ordinance were to be adopted after July 1st, then it's a 180-day waiting period. It's implementation of the fee. So that's where the waiting period is. And then 1001 changed that a little bit. So it says after December 31st of this year, we can only change it. And this is going to apply to all fees, not just building permit fees, but including planning fees. We can only change it once every 5 years and by CPI. So we really will be a little bit strapped into just CPI increases and it won't we'll see if we can, there is other room there if it's, you know, substantial changes that are make it reasonably necessary to increase it. So it doesn't mean it's a flat no, but it's worth looking at every year and seeing if there are substantial changes that justify an increase outside of the CPI. We have to analyze that and propose those changes.
So what you just said, should we be reviewing these before the end of the year? If we don't, because our next time that we can change it is with the CPI or 5 years down the road. So if we're, last time in 2023, we made a change and we didn't make the modification or the adjustment, we have to wait 5 more years before we can do it again.
Yeah, and only by CPI at that point, unless there's a substantial changes justified.
And do we have to have that CPI language in the existing billing language that we currently have? I mean, we're gonna get caught in the middle of this and we're gonna take the hit.
Every time we change it, we would need to adopt a new ordinance imposing those new changes, and then we're still subject to the 180-day waiting period. So usually just a flat general increase without really passing an ordinance. You still need to have a public hearing, publish the new ordinance, and then it would only be increased by the CPI at that point. But we'll look into it. I mean, this is a new bill that will take effect until the summer. So I guess.
So we'll want this on our Monday.
That's our goal, depending on, again, we want to share this with Baggy before it gets on one of your agendas, just so we can say we did. But so yeah, either the second meeting in April, the first meeting in May, or the 2 May meetings.
I would say we can share with them as a courtesy.
Right.
We're not sharing with them for their input to make whatever changes they want to provide us.
Right.
I'm gonna ask you, is this enough? If we're not gonna be able to raise this for a long time, and I'm understanding once only every 5 years by CPI. Is this enough to start us off to be on that path comfortably? I'm looking at you guys, because this is really the question.
Unless you want us to increase it for those items at the bottom that we did not include.
The insurance vehicle.
See, but again, we don't know how you want us to figure that out.
I think what I'm hearing is, yes, for what we've got, this is plenty high enough. This will keep us on track to CPI over 5 years. We hope, should remain in line with covering our costs. Fair enough, all right.
Speak now, forever.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying, like, because we're locked into this, we can't.
Yeah, but it's kind of a catch-22, because we also can't charge more than what it actually costs for us to provide the service. So
Right, but if we're
you're right, we want to go as high as we can, but we can't go higher than what it actually costs us to provide the service as well. So
Correct, if I'm wrong, it's what you can justify.
correct.
Those
So we can
those are
put-
fuzzy words.
Right.
That's not really using a number to say it has a standard, a mathematical function.
Right.
I feel like that list of extra things is purely a justification for whatever that limit might be.
Right.
And I'm saying that because, and I know we're not supposed to compare it to, it really raises a question in Plainfield's industrial permit is going to be 5 times what we're permitting. Again, we're not supposed to compare, but whoa, what are they doing different? And I know they do a lot less.
But they do a lot less, but it's also a little misleading, because their flat fee is substantially more, but their cost per square foot is less.
Okay.
So the overall permit may not end up, our permit may end up actually being more expensive.
Give you 2 numbers, damn it.
And so we feel strongly that, it's a good question, Robert, we feel strongly that the cost per square foot, we try to keep the flat cost lower. We feel like the cost per square foot, and the bigger the building is, or the bigger the house, whatever it is, there's a direct correlation to how much additional time it actually takes. So that cost per square foot piece we felt was more relevant versus putting a really big number of the flat fee. We didn't necessarily feel like that made sense. And so, yeah, if you're only building a 100,000 square foot warehouse or industrial building, it's going to require less. But if you're doing 1 million, and so we felt like that we did increase our cost per square footage number, which is, again, we felt was more justifiable.
I'm tracking, I feel like I heard a yes.
So
Good to go.
the items that are not calculated are at the bottom of the list. We do not use those now. Will we ever be able to use them in calculations?
I mean, I could try to come up with a creative way to.
So I'm not saying whatever those numbers are, I'm saying these categories that we're going to leave out, they will be out forever.
Yes.
That's the-
Yes.
That's the question.
Essentially, yeah.
My recommendation is that you do not leave them out forever. Those costs are going to go up just as well as everything else, and it's very difficult to figure out what those are.
Can you look at the cost of the vehicles, the cost of the vehicle insurance and liability, the cost of training, the cost of code books, and come up with an annual cost of that, and then divide it by the number of transactions by category that you have to add them specifically category. Does that make sense?
Yes, the one thing that could be misleading is like, okay, does the staff need code books? The answer is yes. However, the governor of the esteemed state of Indiana, if they choose not to sign into law any new codes, we have no code cost. So we could go, like, for example, we're using in commercial and industrial, we're using a building code from 2014 because the state has never adopted a new one. Residential, we're using the 2018 residential code. So we've gone 8 years without anything.
But I think they're getting ready to revamp all of that stuff, correct?
We hear rumors, but we don't want to react and say, okay, well, the state's looking at adopting this code.
And most
Yeah.
of it is done electronic anyway, and
Yes.
not manual books, so if that's not a significant expenditure, then,
No.
and the vehicles are, and the insurances, which we all know, and then training, maybe those are the ones to look at, because code books can
Okay.
very easily end up online,
Oh, yeah.
and we don't have to purchase them.
Well, the codes are all copyrighted material, so we have to get them through the International Code Council. So even if we wanted to go electronic, the downside is that we get the electronic copies and they cost us per copy like they would the written. But the state of Indiana amends the codes. When they amend them, it's in writing, it's not electronic. So for us to enforce what's in that book, we have to say, okay, well, they're in violation of this code. And then flip back and go, oh, the state of Indiana deleted that. I guess you're okay.
Well, I mean, just look at them, like I said, if it's a significant expense, then add
Okay.
them, because they are true expenses, we're not making them up.
True.
They are cost and their expenses, but I would say it would be fair to, when you're looking at those costs, to divide them by what our numbers have been in the past.
Okay.
If I understand correctly, so make sure correct me if I'm wrong, there's a difference between us adopting the fees that have been presented to us today, say on our next council meeting, at our next council meeting versus, let's say, our first meeting in December. The only difference, if I understand, is that it's 180 days versus 90 for them to take effect. Is that correct?
So the new law affecting this comes into effect on July 1. And then the statute does say that even if fees is adopted before January 1st of 2027 can only be increased by CPI every 5 years.
So
So I
we
highly
need to do
recommend-
all of this before July 1st.
I highly recommend you adopt the building fees before July 1st.
I'm asking all that. That my question was because what's the level of effort for you guys to quantify all this? And can we get those numbers back in front of us before council meeting? We can double meeting on ordinances before July 1st. here we are in April.
So by the second meeting in April, which is 2 weeks, can you calculate those additional floor expenses? Add them
Yes.
to us so that we can put it on the agenda for the first hearing, first meeting in May, adopt second meeting in May.
We can.
Thank you.
As early as, right? That would work on time.
We will do our best to do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Nate, Laura, and Mike, for working on that. It's a lot of work, so appreciate them doing
Thanks
that.
much for your time.
I saw Steve out walking down the sidewalk.
You're not supposed to tell people that.
I know it's because of the booze.
I was saying, right now, we have those inspected foods.
I was gonna honk, but it was great. Update on the Duke tree clearing.
Yeah, so Duke had the survey redone and by a different company, and the survey came back different. And it's in the favor of the property owners and the landscape easement. So that helped. There are a lot less trees now marked for removal. They're blue tagged for removal, yellow for trimming. There will be quite a few that, there's like 40 or so for removal and a bunch for trimming. Some of the trimming will be drastic, might be walling them off, especially if they're evergreen, that doesn't look great. But what that does is it allows us to then look at what can we do to supplement those trees. And what I found was a lot of them that are going to be removed have trees behind them. And so where it's not ideal to remove them, it still leaves them screening. There are some blind spots already that could use trees. What I recommend is that we leave the negotiation between Duke and property owners because it's not our right of way, it's their utility easement. As far as removals go, I mean, there's some red repairs that are slated for trimming. I'm not saying remove them, but whatever. But leave that for them. But I would like to then relook at it and from the standpoint of screening and use our tree mitigation fund to then work with Duke on species and location and supplement the 40 or so trees that have been removed and spacing reasonably to create screening for in the landscape easement, not on private property, but in the landscape easement.
I really like it.
Mark?
Well, I mean, the way that their landscape is designed there were gaps already. So,
Exactly.
Okay, well, that's good.
My question is then, you have a new survey that tells you another story than the original survey. Of the original survey, how many trees were removed that wouldn't necessarily be removed with the new survey?
I think we're about, so I think about 40 of them.
So who's gonna replace the ones that were removed that didn't?
Oh, they were removed already. They've been removed.
Okay, so none's been removed, they just
No, they're
only been
tagged.
identified.
They're tagged, and there was a lot of tags. People got concerned about all the tags.
Yeah, we caught it before they removed the trees.
Yeah.
So when they remove a tree, isn't it like a developer, if you take one down, you gotta put two back? Are they gonna do that?
Well, it's in their landscape easement, in their utility easement, and they're not supposed to be there in the first place, so I don't know how that works as far as whoever let them, if they put them there against any ordinance or any policy, I don't know that there are actually trees that we can make them replace. Because they weren't supposed to be there in the first place.
So the information that you just presented us, will that appease the people that were at the last town council meeting?
I think that we have, I think we expanded.
My concern is how can two surveyors be so?
Is that normal for surveys to come back different?
It's not, it's not normal, so, but they're both justified. So what happens is, which reference point? So you get 3 different surveyors and you get 3 different answers, right? But 10 feet is kind of a lot, but here's what it is. So that plat that shows the utility easement said it was based on grass. Well, grass today versus where grass was 10, 20, 30, I don't know how many years ago, 50 years ago when they planted it, that could change easily by widening and moving the road, right? So one of them took it from where the grass is, because that's what it said, not the plat. The other one took it from a different reference point, from the property lines and went backwards, went that way. And so that's why you got two different answers. The second answer, the first one, I would not have measured from the grass, because grass moves. And that's what the first one did. And so that one, that's why they got a resurvey, is because that was a great reference point.
Is it normal for easements to be that dumb? On the grass?
I-
Well, not our communities for that question.
When I worked in the auditor's office and we checked legal descriptions, I mean, sometimes it's the center point of the road that may not exist anymore, sometimes it's a tree.
Well, the center road shifts all the time too.
Yeah,
Or just a
a
very,
river, along the river, well, that changes too, I mean, they are.
Yeah, I run into this, with the, Ohio River, I'm running into a lot of places where things shift. And so you have, that's why they have these monuments. And when you find monuments, you leave those, they're protected by law, you can't move them. Because if you use those as your reference points, you'll be fine. But yeah, when they reference grass, that's just ridiculous. But somebody did.
It's a fair question, Robert, because the easement is 50 years old. Like it wasn't an easement that Duke bought. So there was probably nothing there when Duke bought the easement, so they probably had nothing to go off of. So they wrote it off of whatever they could, which again isn't great, but.
Yeah, and they would have monumented it in better, but at this point, we have something that we feel is reasonable, and so they're going.
If I remember, they needed to remove the berm as well, or part of it, is that gone now as well?
It doesn't appear that they'll have to get into it very much at all, if at all.
It's not the actual berm itself. The trees were on the berm. And it's also a landscape easement for the neighborhood. And so that's what, there's an overlap of the landscape easement for the neighborhood and the Duke easement. So it's the trees on the berm that they're taking out. They're not necessarily taking out the berm, but that's what they're moving their poles over. They don't want those trees in their new poles. So again, I think the good news is we got ahead of it. We caught it. Steve met with Duke. Duke was also glad to not have taken all the trees down. And Steve working through it. We're communicating with the neighborhood as well. I've talked to Dave Cox already. I don't know, Steve, if you've had a chance to talk to the Beaver Farm folks yet or not. But
I haven't given them the latest.
okay.
What's cobblestone?
Yeah, Cobblestone, yeah. Dave Cox is Cobblestone. So I talked to Dave Cox. He was in one day, and I talked to him and gave him a heads up where we're at. He
So
said,
it's two HOAs, it's Beachway and.
Right. But I think most of the people that were here were cobblestone.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Google would give us a grant anyhow to replace them.
Okay?
and again, I did, just so you guys, I know Dave Cox brought it up in the meeting, just so you guys know. And that's what I had offered. I told Dave, we don't know what they're gonna do with the trees, but if they do cut them down, that's part of the tree mitigation fund that we get, our contributions from developers. For what you said, Greg, so when a developer cuts down a tree, they've got to replace them at some quantity. If they can't fit them all in their project, they make a donation to the tree mitigation fund. And the town is supposed to use that fund to plant trees other places in town. So that's what I told Dave Cox, that I said, you guys have to approve it, but I said, it would make sense that that would be a place we could potentially use some of the funds from the tree mitigation fund, based on, depending on what they actually did. Because it would be disappointing for them to chop down all those trees along Dan Jones and just be gone. It's a nice buffer for them, so.
Moving on to application for the IEDC grant.
Yeah, this is a little bit of just, I want to be informative with you guys, but then also if you're interested, I think Tiffany has come across this created as well, maybe not. I think I discouraged her from applying, but, and I think I'm going to discourage myself from applying as well, but I figured I'd run that by you guys first. So a little bit of background. So some of this is coming out of CERTA as well. This was one of the initiatives that CERTA took on, was to do a study of the creative economy and how that impacts people. And so the mayor of Carmel kind of led a group on CERTA to look at how arts and culture impacted people's economies. And so I gave you a little bit of the study from CERTA that's in there. I gave you guys some of the statistical data. I'm not going to walk you guys through that. You can look at it in your own time. But it shows substantial economic impact as a result of that. But the second piece of that is the IEDC arts grant. And so I know you guys are familiar with Ready 2.0. A portion of Ready 2.0 money was set aside for arts and culture. It is the same application process as Ready 2.0. So the same process we had to go through to get the funding for the Civic Center is the same process you have to go through for the arts grants. And I know I've informed you guys that process has been cumbersome, difficult. I've had to do the application about 8 times, and the IEDC still continues to not approve it. And again, that was probably worth it because it was for $1.5 million, but if you're talking about maybe a $50,000 grant or a smaller grant, it's a lot of work for a small amount of money. You will note I put a couple of pages in there from the procedures. The bad part is the deadline is April 15th, so that's next week, so it would be a substantial amount of work to try to do. I had originally not thought to apply for this. Tiffany had a conversation with me about applying for it, like I said.
Stop putting my name out there.
It was good. She was looking for opportunities to apply for funds. So, but it did get me thinking that I don't think it would be something to use for our artwork on the Civic Center, but the Avon sculpture in the front, the RDC has approved someone to do a conceptual design for what that would be. Again, I think the estimate from the company designing it, I think it's only about $50,000. We probably have the money to pay for that in our budget, but that was a thought. I could potentially apply for that here. The other thought I had was when we did the capital improvement plan, you guys will recall, there was an item on there to try to get artwork in the roundabouts. And so I thought, I don't know that that idea is developed substantially enough to go try to apply for a grant. I could try, but it was also in your guys' prioritization. It was like priority like number 45. So I also didn't want to go out there and try to get money for something that you guys, yes, maybe we want to do it, but it's a lower priority. But that is also a good place to look for grants, to find that. Again, I don't know that I'm really ready. The timing's not really right, but.
I don't know that it was that low of a priority for me, but priority as far as where we need to spend money. I mean, it would be nice to have roundabouts with some culture and some art. The roundabouts, I was in Primal last week, and their roundabouts are beautiful. And they have sculptures, and it's a happy roundabout. But when I'm just looking at the budget, I rated it low because I'm like, we need to pay for police officers before we put a flower sculpture in the roundabout. So
We could put a monument of Chief Stoops in the roundabout.
we could have bronze sculpture.
Let's go with gold.
I think the name was reports earlier.
Are there fees for that? Can we put fees for that?
And even, you'll remember, like Steve in the Raceway and 100 North roundabout, we talked about putting something in there that would represent kind of people coming into Avon at that roundabout. We put in some of the landscaping stuff in there. Our work isn't necessarily in that, but again, that I kind of had several ideas of things we could try to go after, but at the same time, I don't know that it's vetted thoroughly enough to really try to put an application together for next week. But if you guys think it's something that is important and we take a shot at it, I'll get to work and try to pull it together.
Would our new park signs for all the newly named parks be something that would qualify for this grant line?
Well, maybe we ought to have Tiffany give us her viewpoint.
What do you think? Not that I would invoke your name. Shelby, what would Tiffany think?
We need a giant pickle over there on.
The reason why I initially started looking at the grant is because I would love to see a Heron statue in this park. That was my initial reasoning behind it. However, like Brian said, the application process is extreme. So I don't know that I would feel comfortable trying to do it in that quick of a time frame, but Brian's a pro, so he may feel differently than I do.
We believe in you, right?
Well, I know you do this. I mean, in fairness too, I don't, in the wise words of Mike Tully, we haven't seen a dime of that $1.5 million that we got. You know, part of me says, are we ever gonna get any of this money? Like, do we trust the state to actually eventually give it to us? And are we spending all this time and money on something, and is the state actually gonna give it to us? Not a single person, in my understanding, who's gotten ready 2 grants, there's a dollar hasn't flowed out of the state yet. Not a dollar. And then it was $500 million.
I think we ought to rely on Professor Tully's wisdom then.
That's my own 2 cents. It's not a political commentary. It's just, it's a lot of work to not.
Okay, let's move on, but keep it in mind and discuss it earlier next year.
Okay.
MDOT US 36, adding the travel lane.
Yeah, so this may make your heads hurt. I'm not trying to do that. I'm gonna try to just simply lay out a little bit about what's going on. And this is more of a preparation for you. NDOT has met with us twice since their public hearing on the 36 added travel lane project. I say they met with us, they met with staff. Linda, Paul, Steve, myself, Sean even joined us in the last meeting. So our staff and NDOT staff, there's been like 12 of us meeting. They're bringing everybody out. They've been good discussions, but it's gonna make your head hurt. And so we have another meeting in late April, and then they'd like to come talk to you guys at your work session in May. And so I felt like I needed to at least get you guys a little bit up to speed and share with you what they're talking to us about. So when they show up to have this conversation with you guys in May, you're at least mentally prepared for that. So that's all really I'm doing today. That's why it's not a 45-minute discussion. It's more just to educate you. So the first thing I want to let you know is this is not about the section that we commented that we don't support, the section from Beyond Production Drive through the Midtown District. It's not about that. They are focused on the piece that's in front of them, which is from Carotterman Court to Shiloh Professional Drive. That segment actually has been approved for funding. And so they actually call it phase 3, which is weird. But again, it's from Shiloh, so where they stopped at Shiloh to Carotterman Court. And part of the reason they're pushing to have these conversations now is the water company has asked for 3 years of time to do their utility relocation in advance of their 2029 project. So NDOT is trying to get far enough along in a design to tell the water company what they need to do. But apparently the water company has an 18-inch water line that is going to cost tens of millions of dollars to relocate. And so they need time to be able to pay for it and to actually do the work. So that's what's going to push the urgency. And so of course they're going to push that upon us because we are a little bit of the holdup in what they want to do. So again, there's several issues we have. Some of it is pedestrians and how they're going to accommodate pedestrians. The second issue is, as you guys are aware, is traffic signals and their desire to potentially, what they're now calling good traffic signals versus bad traffic signals. And what they are referring to as a good traffic signal is what they just did at Harvest Landing at Costco. Whereas it's this is their PR, which is what they actually call the displaced left turn. And it would allow U-turns. So just as a reminder, when they do this section, they go to 6 lanes, they're also going to have access control. So there's be limited places where people are actually able to turn left. And so they want to be able to accommodate that by making displaced left turns. They want to take traffic away from the busiest intersections so that they can steal time. And the way they do that is allow people to do U-turns. So they want people to come out, turn right, go to a spot where they can do a U-turn, and that's a displaced left. That's basically what they did at Harvest Landing. People aren't really turning left, or they are really turning left. They're not doing U-turns at that location. But what NDOT wants to do is add displaced lefts. As staff, it's really none of our business. That's fine for them to do displaced lefts. They proposed 4 locations for displaced lefts in that segment. They want to do one at Shiloh, which is by the FC Tucker. They want to do one at Gordon, which is by the Applebee's. They want to do one where the trailer park is, in front of Avon, in front of the Walmart. And they want to do that 4, right? See, did I get them all?
There's no place to turn left.
Well, no, that's what, it's going to be when they don't, no, there will be. There'll be a place to turn left eventually.
Does anybody really think that no one's going to do U-turns?
No, they do think they're going to do U-turns. They want them to do the U-turns, and they want to do them in these locations. They don't want them to do them at the traffic signals because that impacts their ability to progress traffic through the portal. So they're going to give you guys all this. So I'm not going to give you all the data. They're going to show you the data of how doing these displaced lefts will increase the progression along the entire portal.
If you've ever seen this before, which there are states that do this, I just came from one and just participated in this kind of construction. People are going to make a U-turn wherever they can. I don't care whether it's light or a displaced area. I just want you guys to be ready because it's going to happen. I watched it for 3 weeks. Unbelievable how people dodged in and out of each other. Okay, that's it. I'm just making my point.
So really, we don't have any input on the displaced lefts. If they choose to do that, we can't control that. That's not ours. Where it does become an issue for us is our thoroughfare plan. The town council has made a policy that says no more traffic signals on 36. So if they want to do more traffic signals on 36, again, it may be a political fight, but it worked when Harvest Landing came along and we pushed back on their traffic signal there. And the council did eventually say, we'd allow you to do it as a demonstration project. The question becomes then what to do with pedestrians. And so we have been having some internal meetings about pedestrians. What NDOT would also like to do is to move the pedestrian crossings to the displaced lefts. So instead of having pedestrians crossing at major intersections, they want them also to cross at these displaced lefts. In order to have the displaced lefts and the pedestrians, then they have to have the good traffic signals. So you'd be adding 3 additional traffic signals similar to what they did at Harvest Landing.
In a 3-mile section.
A mile and a half. And there's already 5 traffic signals in that section.
Well, but like I said, at the end of the day, we can talk to her blue in the face. We have no input. It's their road, and they're gonna do what they wanna do, no matter what we say.
But they're giving us input on locations, you know. So you take the bad and you make it the best you can, right? And so they're giving us input on locations, and we're looking at pedestrian generators, you know, where the apartments, you know, where are the people coming from? And they're letting us have some input as to how we can corral these people and help retrain them to use these displaced lefts as they're crossing locations. And right now, we don't have the volume of pedestrians anyhow.
Well, that was my question. What's the number of pedestrians that use this? A, B, how many go to a specific crosswalk to get across? See, they just go right across the middle of the road wherever they want.
It's kind of like a deer crossing sign. They're never wearing signs.
Good observation, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, Greg, but Steve's right. I mean, they're allowing us to give input. We're pushing for them to accommodate pedestrians. They don't want to. Paul's done a fantastic job of advocating for pedestrians. But at the same time, if they have 4 pedestrian crossings, like in that mile now, we only have 2. In that mile and a half, we only have 2. We have 1 at Reagan and we have 1 at Harvest Landing. Those are the only crossings. So, and then we also have to figure out, do we want to accommodate them at the other 5 traffic signals, or do we want to change them to the displaced lefts? NDOT wants to push all the pedestrian crossings to the displaced lefts. They did provide us a study that LPAP did in And so we're trying to look at that study, and that's what we're having a follow-up meeting in a couple of weeks, and we're going to have some more discussions with that. But again, I don't disagree with you, Greg, in the end, but NDOT isn't just trying to steamroll us, at least they're having some conversations with us, and we do have a little bit of leverage because of the thoroughfare plan and what it says, which is the same thing, we have some leverage on the Midtown District because that's in our planning. They can't just ignore our planning efforts. So we have a little bit of leverage, I agree, we don't have a lot, but it's better for us to give input than do nothing.
Didn't they just put in the pedestrian crossing right there by, at the light when you turn by Cooper's Hall? Isn't there a pedestrian?
That's the Harvest Landing one, yeah, that's the displaced left, yeah.
But is that the displaced left? Because that's further down by the Costco gas
Are you
station.
talking about a Satori?
Yes, that's.
It's not.
Yeah, so that's
There's
not,
that on there.
no, so they're talking on either side of Satori for 2 additional locations for this place.
Okay.
And so either side of Satori would be where people would actually cross, they wouldn't cross at Satori.
Okay.
What they're trying to do, when you have a pedestrian phase in a traffic signal, that takes away from the time for all the traffic to get through, because you have to stop traffic in a certain direction. And so it becomes much more efficient when you don't have it. So what happens with the Harvest Landing half signal, we call it, or the good signal, what it does is allows you to cross from one direction at a time. It's safer for pedestrians because at a traditional intersection, you have to look at all 4 directions to see if cars come, especially the one that's closest to you, people turning right or people turning left, right? You have to look at those 2 directions, and of course, around across the street as well. Here, you're looking to the left, or or you're looking to the right. You're looking at one direction, you're getting to the refuge island in the middle, and you're making your next move to the next side. So you're not stopping traffic in both directions. So what it does is it makes it more efficient at the traditional intersections, and it makes it safer at the displaced lefts. Because there are displaced left in no matter what, but whether there was a signal there for pedestrians is what the question is. And that's where we have some. Because they're going to put that displaced left in no matter what.
And the signal wouldn't be all the time going like all the rest.
It has to be activated by a pedestrian, I assume.
Well, it's also when for the U-turns, right? So if someone's in there to make the U-turn, it can stop just the one side. Let them make the U-turn, let a pedestrian out. And that's kind of how ours is.
Okay.
I'll come back and visit.
And the other alternative is, I just as a reminder, I'll say it, I know Paul's not here, but this is why in our comp plan discussion, we also had the discussion of having a conversation with NDOT about Resolution 36. And not that I'm advocating for that, because I don't know that I want to take on that animal, but that's an option too for us to have that conversation with them. But then the town's got to figure these things out as well. So.
With these displaced lefts that they're proposing, are they going to be exactly like the one at Harvest Landing, or is there going to be concrete down both sides similar to there by Frostbite? We just did the Brewster's Frostbite. Yeah. It's not only just a painted left lane, it is, you aren't really afraid of someone coming across and you head on, like happens at Harvest Landing right now. I'm hitting on it, but at the same time, I also want to say, I feel like the traffic through that area is not impacted by that light whatsoever.
And that's what NDOT wants you to see, that that's not
So I want to
been
say,
a problem.
before that, I was like, no, it's a light, fuck you, I don't want it. Now I've had the experience of this, okay, it's not bad, other than I don't want to be hit head on. So, is it gonna have concrete? Yes.
Yeah, so this is supposed to be traffic control, so the U-turns are only going to be at those displaced lefts or at the traditional intersections that we have. It's not going to be in between. People aren't going to be able to access drives like they do now.
Sure.
There's not going to be that suicide lane anymore.
Roger.
You're not going to have that. You're going to have a concrete median.
I feel like I knew that, I want to make sure that that's gonna be the case, because if they're building them just like Harvest Landing and they're effectively allowing a suicide lane, this is not a good idea.
Yeah, the way they're showing in the plans, there's concrete on both sides.
6 inches, not
Yeah,
the like
it's
1
narrow,
or
and so
2.
you kind of come into a channel, and then it has concrete on both sides. That's the drawings that we actually did.
At least half a dozen times going into Costco, I'm about to have to go back into the flow of traffic because somebody's like, oh, this is my left turn lane. So,
Right. So again, in defense of, I mean, Robert, you just made the point that NDOT will try to make when they're here with you guys in May, which is these displaced lefts with lights would be the better solution to enhance the progression along the corridor. And they're gonna provide you traffic data to show that. They're gonna show you what the delays look like if they do it in different ways. They've been modeling those different delays. We've seen some preliminary numbers. That's what they needed some more time to pull that together. And then they're gonna come and share it with you guys. So they're gonna make that argument to you that, hey, I know you don't want more lights, but doing it this way will actually help traffic flow in the corridor. Not only just now, but 20 years from now.
Traffic stimulation.
I don't know that they're gonna bring the traffic simulation because that's pretty boring, but they've got some calculations, like a traffic study to be able to share that.
I like boring.
You like the board? You want to see the little cars moving? We can ask them. I'm sure they have it. It's just a matter of whether you want to bring it and share it with you or not.
We can tell them
We'll
turn it on.
ask them.
Is there anywhere else in Indiana that done this?
South side.
West Lafayette. So this is actually a study done by, what's his name? But it's been done as a beta project in West Lafayette.
Pendleton Pike has some similarities, right? It's not exactly the same though, is that correct, Linda?
Yeah, and they're having all kinds of trouble. They didn't do this.
They didn't do displaced lefts.
And they're having a lot of trouble with the U-turns at the intersections.
Yeah, so
We have displaced lefts at West Lafayette. Are they in? Have they been running and how long?
it's in the study, I have to look at it. I read about it like a week ago, so I forgot.
I think that's a great question for them in May, Bill. Write that one down and remember to ask it when they're here.
And I think I'll just, if you find out where it is,
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
I'll go visit.
Okay. Rocher?
Yep.
Harry's?
Whatever. Because I'm telling you, I see this in other states, and it is a nightmare if you're not, if you're an elderly driver, you're in trouble. Let's just put it that way.
Roundabouts are confusing for some.
Yeah, like I said, that's it. And it will be different, and so it will be confusing, but people learn and figure it out. Just like, I remember when we put the first roundabout, and people told us we were idiots and no one would ever figure out how to drive them. And they were right for like 3 years, but I think like now it's getting better.
Well, Bill, we have lots of old people in Bradenton, Florida, and we have this in Bradenton, Florida. That's some issues.
That's what I'm talking about. Florida,
Yeah, I said,
prevalent down there, and this is a service.
yeah, it is prevalent in Florida. This is probably where you'd see it most, this is a lot of 6-lane sections in Florida. I was just in Florida, I was in Kissimmee, and it had that design. Now it was pretty chaotic and traffic is insane. It made 36 look like it had no traffic on it. But again, it worked, but it was confusing and it was difficult.
I do grant that the traffic that I've witnessed at those places are much, much higher density than they are here at Kansas. I do understand.
Okay, any other topics? Or we adjourn?
I think Shelby maybe had one.
Yeah.
You want to go, Shelby?
I told you guys in our last, update that I had a couple, maintenance staff members go through the certified playground safety inspector class. The one that passed and is certified has taken a look at our playgrounds. And I just wanted to, I guess, forewarn you guys, in the future, maybe next month or so, townhouse meetings, we will probably be bringing to you some large expense items to fix some things at the playgrounds. We've done both the Rotary playground and the North playground, and we looked at the mulch that we need as well. So, kind of an urgent thing, I'd like to prioritize this if possible, just make sure that the community and the people who use those are safe.
So we have it in the budget, or you have to pass somewhere else?
Depends on when the quote comes back. We actually had a representative from one of the playground companies come out today, and we were all out there and we walked through everything, and they took notes on what could be replaced or options for us to do. And so when that quote comes back, I imagine it'll probably be 6 figures, and we'll have to come up with it somewhere.
I mean, I think it's a priority, we have to do it,
Yeah.
so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
If we don't have it in the budget, then start looking and be able to tell us where we're gonna cut back on.
Can we apply that grant? Is that, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I would absolutely cut back other places from food and beverage to be able to get that done.
All right, thank you.
And maybe just two other quick things, if you guys don't mind. I know you're tired of me talking, but political signs. I've had some people reach out to me about political signs. We have reached out to both candidates and said you cannot put your signs in the right of way they're supposed to be doing. I also received a request to put political signs on town-owned property. I have told people they are not permitted to do that. The law says that if you allow one person, you have to let every person in both parties. So I've said they cannot put it on any town-owned properties. If you guys disagree with that, have a conversation with me, please. But in case any of the candidates reach out to you, I want you to know what the town's position was. And then finally, the second thing is you have a memo in your mailboxes from Dave Cox on the animal control. I did reach out after we talked about this at the work session to Dave Cox. He's helped me out by having some conversations with the county. So I know he's shared some information with you. I also talked to the other town managers about it on Tuesday when I had my meeting with them. Danville and Plainfield were both taking some steps to fill the voids, which kind of shocked me. Danville was going to have their code enforcement officers start do it, and Plainfield was going to have their community resource officers do it. I shared with them that what your guys' position was that if we could stand together and push back against the county, and they said regardless, they were willing to still do that. So we're going to keep working. Dave has asked me for a little bit of time to let him work through. He seems to think the county still is having discussions and figuring it out, and has kind of said, let us try to figure that out. So that's kind of where that is. There's still discussions going on in the background. But again, I think Sean has stuck his position. We're not doing it. You will note in there, that's why I kind of want to share that with you, because I asked, because the email says, well, Avon's the only one who's refusing to take runs, but really Plainfield and Danville aren't taking, they're taking some runs, but they're not doing everything. They're not filling the entire gap. So just wanted to share
Just to
that.
be clear, we're not taking none of those dead roads. We're still taking some of the reports and stuff like that. We're not going and picking up animals and stuff like that.
Right.
One question regarding your campaign signs, are we pulling the ones out that are in the right of ways?
Steve pulled a whole bunch out of the right of way already.
I'm gonna go back by truck.
I don't know if there's still more. The candidate who had them in the right of way told me they were having them moved by the end of the day yesterday. I don't
think
They're still there.
I haven't had a chance to get out and look, but yeah.
I'm only thinking about roundabouts, splitter islands and medians. There's still a bunch in the right of way, but I don't really touch those. I just touch the ones that there was no sign supposed to ever be in roundabouts, splitter islands and medians.
But they're not supposed to be in the right of ways either.
No, they're not.
And
Only a private
I've talked
property
to
permission.
both candidates as well. You know, I told them. But I think they've had their one Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I think it's time to get them off the road.
I tell Keaton, I pick them up.
Well,
They're out there.
the next person say if they can do it, why can't I?
Well,
That's why I think about splitter islands and roundabouts and medians, because I don't want people thinking they can put theirs there. In the right of way, other signs can go. So that's why I wasn't picking on those. I was picking on where no sign can go. The next step is take them out of the right of way. And if you're telling me to get them out, we'll get them out.
And they're not supposed to be in the right of ways.
That's
Not supposed to be there, take them out.
all right.
I mean, and then as far as town property, my opinion is, I don't want to take my kid to the park. I know I'm old, but I don't want to, I don't want to have to see 50 signs. Just like weekends for model homes, they're all just populating every corner you go to. You don't want to see that. You want to take your kid to a park and enjoy the park and the greenery and leave politics behind, I guess. So to me, I don't think town properties are a place to put those things, but I'm on the vibe, so.
So I'm done. Thank you, guys.
Can I put a next sign
to order, and please rise for the
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Julie Rose.
Robert Vogt.
Present.
Bill Holland.
Present.
Greg Susan.
Present.
Don Allen.
Present.
Jason Puckett.
Present.
Next is the consent agenda. There's no discussion. Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, including the check register for April 9, 2026, approval of the minutes for March 26th, redevelopment authority annual report, and the redevelopment commission annual report as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Julie. Roll call, please.
Robert Vogt.
Four.
Greg Susan.
Four.
Don Allen.
4.
Bill Holland.
Four.
Jason Puckett.
4.
Next is public comment. The public may comment on the agenda that is not part of a public hearing or on a specific matter within the council's jurisdiction. No public in the audience tonight, so we'll move forward with department updates.
Good evening, Linda Allred, Planning Department Director. I'm going to update you on cases coming before the Plan Commission. We have one BZA case. In April, the Plan Commission will hear a new building out at Avon Landing, Building 3. This will be east of Sephora, between Sephora and we have a development review for the joint, their maintenance building that's up on Avon Avenue. We have a new development for what's called Wright's Gymnastics, which will be on Houston Street for a new gymnastics facility and some other tea shops. Wright's Gymnastics has also applied for a variance for their dumpster to be in front of their building. We have an administrative review for the Crew Car Wash East, Raceway Road 1, for some additional parking. Then for May, we just had filed an addition to the substation for Henderson Power on 900 East. Then along 100 South, Avon Logistics will be getting a new building, so the third building for along 100 South. So we have a plat and a TPR for that. And we have a minor plat come in for Shiloh Crossing. So this is the corner at Shiloh 36. They're trying to create another lot right there, in the northwest corner. And then we have a rezoning for Wright's Gymnastics, a third case for Wright's Gymnastics, because they have some zoning line over regular lots, so they're cleaning that out. Finally, I'd just like to bring you up to date on BC USA. Our original set of girls received their silver award and inspired the next set of girls. So we have 2 more coming forward that are going to be working on the renewal for next year. And they've identified a roundabout that they're going to plant some pollinator gardens in. And they have an idea for like a bee topiary thing in the middle of it. Along what we were talking about earlier. We haven't finalized all the plans yet, but we're just getting started with that, and they'll be filing the renewal report next year. Any questions?
Steve Moore, the Works Director. I guess the biggest news is for the next couple months will be Raceway and 100 North Roundabout. We've got concrete median barrier for our hard detour right now, so that it'll discourage more people from entering into the construction area. We also have a lot of holes in the road, so that should help discourage some people as well. Utilities are about done. AES should be done tomorrow. Citizens water should be done maybe next week, next week, so things are going well. We have been to Tom's, then they have to go and pull some wires and put the wires off of the old poles, and they go over it off the new, so that's getting close. The contractor, our road contractor should be starting on the 23rd of this month. Then the other great job, obviously, is Dan Jones Phase 3 between 36 and 100 North. Right now, Duke Energy is getting ready to relocate some of their larger transmission poles on the west side of the road, and also some distribution poles to the west side of the road as well. So they were out with potholing today and laying out locations and confirming other utilities. So that's going to be happening. Our contractor should be delivering structures in the next week or so and start getting stuff on site and further start on the construction. I'm guessing they're trying to make sure they have things all in order, but I think by the end of this month they should be on site and starting their project. We'll maintain traffic in both directions for the entire project. It's a two-year project, so there'll be construction, but there'll still be traffic being able to flow through it. CCMG, we had some punch list items from last year that they're finishing up here out there today, and the last few days they rectifying the surface seal on the asphalt that they did last year, and then also some striping there for those that got today. So they're wrapping that up. Then the new CCMG, the new roads, is going to start probably by the end of this month. Any other questions?
Thank you. Good evening, Shelby Pride, Parks and Recreation Director. We had our Park and Rec Beautification Council meeting last night. We had all of our members and one community member there. It was very exciting. We just wanted to come and share some input on the parks and say thank you for Woody in the park coming up. And his dog is very excited. We received our new bobcat equipment, and my maintenance team says thank you so much because they love everything, and everything is already being put to use. So thank you guys for that. A construction update on the new parks. We've received all of our bonds, all of our info back. We're waiting on contracts to be finalized and signed. Both contractors could be ready to mobilize early May. Pickleball is slated to be a 4-month project, and the other parks have a substantial completion date by November. I have 2 staff members going to the Early Childhood Play Summit on April 22nd. It's our program and events staff that are both going to attend that. April 23rd is our Arbor Day celebration at Avon High School. We are planting 3 trees for them. Not everybody can come out, obviously, but there's some classes that are planning on coming out and helping us do that. That will also be the night that you guys will have the Arbor Day proclamation read at the town council meeting. And then we received our largest sponsorship for Night at the Park fireworks we have ever gotten. $13,000 covers almost the entire cost of our fireworks display. Any questions? Thank you.
Good evening, Sean Stewart, Chief of Police. We want to thank the council, RDC, Town Manager Ryan Cannon, Mike Tully, Dave Billings, Steve Moore, our town treasurer, and Lieutenant Tom Owens, and our legal team for making the recent acquisition of the property that will eventually become the future site of the Avon Police Department Training Center. Since we took possession last week of the property, the remediation company's been there and has been working on the lead cleanup. I included a few pictures there for you to take a look at. It seems to be going pretty well, and it's much cleaner now, just a few days since they started than what it was just a few days before that. So. Last month, I met with Henry County Veteran Suicide Prevention Coalition for a monthly meeting. We discussed grant options, developing peer support groups for Indiana National Guard and reserves and their families, as well as first responders possibly, which kind of ties into the next topic there. Over the last several weeks, the Police Department Chaplain Gary Hatfield has been researching information and attending training and seminars to help develop peer support peer support program for our agency. It's still very early development stages, but we feel this is a great benefit and an opportunity for our employees. Officers Bussey, Sumner, and Wilson are still progressing through their field training program. We expect them to be upgraded to their status to solo patrol groups. And lastly, we want to congratulate Officer Avon Copley, his wife, and on the birth of their baby girl, Kinsley Renee. She was born yesterday, 7 pounds, 8 ounces, 20 inches long. Both mom and baby are doing well. Not so sure about that. So, I'm stressing. I can answer any questions.
Last but not least, Julie Loper, Treasurer. I want you to know we're in the process of closing out March. I'm hoping, there's some things that have come up, I'm hoping to have those reports to you next week. What I want to hit though first is, 'tis the season for solicitors. I have been getting a lot of solicitor permits. I've been greeting a lot of unsolicited people in my own neighborhood that I have let them know that they cannot do that. I want to let the public know who's watching, we only have one company right now that is authorized to be soliciting within our town that went through the proper channels, and that is Joint. They did go through the proper channels, and they should have roughly 9 people out and about. And they did sign up for 1 month, but no one else should be soliciting right now. And, but I have had interest in some Vivens and pest control companies, and so coming to a door near you soon. I will keep you posted on who's going to be out and about.
After comment, we also have reports, Bill. Everybody's shaking hands, no? So legal counsel report. Public comment. Okay, no public. Let's move on to council calendar.
Your next meeting is April 23rd at 7 PM. No work session. We'll see you guys then.
Jim?